Every Tuesday, 9 o'clock, we're here to bring value. As today's special guest, we've got Mr. Scott Nicholson. What's up, Scott?
Good morning. How are you?
I'm good, brother. Good to see you, man.
Yep.
So we also have Greg Anderson. He is going to be a few minutes late. Not late. He's just going to be joining us in a few minutes. What I thought I would do is I would kick off the first 10 to 15 minutes just defining what it means to be a mortgage coach black belt. And if you watched me with Ryan Grant last week, it's going to be a little bit of an overview, but we have fine-tuned it. I've defined what it means to be an orange belt, blue belt, green belt, and then we're going to bring in some real live mortgage coach black belts that are going to teach you mortgage strategies. So I'm going to share my screen and create what I think is, call it version 1 of the Mortgage Coach Black Belt series. I've dedicated my whole career in the mortgage business to just being an advisor, leveraging technology, and always bringing leadership to everything I do. So when I went through the process of creating this, I interviewed the best of the best. I mean, we're lucky here at Mortgage Coach that we've got 30% of the top lenders as clients. We've got 34% of the top loan officers that close over 100 loans as clients. And so that's what I do is we find great stories, we interview them, and then we build technology to help you guys execute and implement. So just a reminder, this is the digital shift era. It started in 2007. We believe by 2027, how a mortgage is done, how a real estate transaction is done will be, vastly different. The transaction will be much more efficient, and we live in this digital shift era. And I think being a black belt is the key to making the next 10 years better than the last 10 years. So let's just review the types of loan officers out there that are top producers. Some do it because they just work hard. And let's face it, everybody works hard. It's a top producer. Some become a top producer through building great relationships, and they're a relationship first loan officer. Some do it through problem solving. Some are the lone wolf. And anybody who saw me go through the Challenger sale, I'm borrowing from that. And basically the Challenger sales rep is the mortgage coach. And when you look at the best of the best, while they embody all of these characteristics, the mortgage coach loan officer is the alpha producer. They're the ones that are most efficient, most effective. And this is the process of the mortgage coach loan officers. They ask great questions. That's something we didn't totally define in the last call with Ryan Grant. We're going to do that today. What are the questions that a black belt loan officer asks for personalization? They deliver a total cost analysis so that they're teaching things that families didn't otherwise consider. And of course, they're bringing leadership. They're controlling the sales process. And all of this is wrapped in constructive tension, radical authenticity, and extreme empathy. So this is the framework to be a top producing mortgage professional. And you guys all learn from what we talked about last week with Ryan Grant is you need to teach consumers something they hadn't considered. And the goal is always to teach something that they'll always remember. We call that a star moment. So some of this is review from last week. Greg, good to have you, brother. I'm glad you made it.
Hi, Dave. Sorry for the technical difficulties there. I won't be able to share my computer screen, but I have a couple of things that I wanted to share for sure.
No problem. And if you can email a TCA, I can pull it up on my screen, just FYI. And I can also pull up some past TCAs that you said. So, Greg, okay, I'm going to finish kind of going through this path to being a mortgage coach black belt and have you give commentary. Do you still have a hard stop in 25 minutes just so I can pace what I bring you in?
Yep, about 25 minutes.
Okay, I'll make sure we have you off the call within that. So guys, this is what 95% of the mortgage experiences out in the marketplace look like. Loan officers delivering interest rate, monthly payment, and cash to close. Call that the transactional triangle. That is being a white belt. And this is the value prop that most loan officers have. I can close your loans faster, easier, and I've got great rates. And this is the white belt mortgage advice questions that just about every referral-based loan officer asks. How old do you want to be? Or excuse me, how long do you plan to live in this home or have this loan? So again, this is white belt. And in today's digital shift market, we don't think that that's enough. We think that you need to become a black belt in mortgage advice, give family options, make sure that they can self-educate on any device, Android, iPhone, desktop, leverage technology to deliver that advice. And whether or not they're coming into your office, make sure that they're getting this great advice experience. And Greg, if you can just put it on mute, just heads up, the camera will go wherever the noise is. So yeah, perfect. So this is what it looks like to deliver a modern in-office experience. This is what it looks like to teach a family they hadn't considered when you're out there meeting with a first-time homebuyer. And again, this is what Jeremy Sporcier's total cost analysis looks like as a black belt mortgage professional. Brand, transactional details, that's the transactional triangle. But then going beyond that. So let me break this down for you guys. And then let me bring in Greg to get his commentary. This is a black belt value prop. I want to be captain of the wealth team. And I'm gonna define that in more detail. This is the captain of the wealth team. The realtors at the top, they're the ones who help the family build wealth through buying and selling real estate. You've got CPAs and financial planners. Financial planner manages the assets. CPA manages tax liabilities. Insurance professionals manage risk. And attorneys take care of projects and challenges. So the black belt mortgage professional has relationships with all these people and really positions themselves with the family that I'm going to help you build wealth with real estate, and I have all these resources for you. So let's define orange belt. And Greg, I'm going to ask you to unmute in just a second and get your feedback on this. This is what we believe a orange belt in mortgage advice could do. They could do the transactional triangle, and they could also show the cost of the loan over different periods of time. That's where the transparency comes in. And they've done that 20 or more times with the total cost analysis. A green belt, on the other hand, has done 50 TCAs, and not only can they do the cost over time, but they can show prepay strategies and investment strategies. So, and they've done 50 plus total cost analysis. Greg, anything you want to add to this, or any thoughts you have as we're trying to build out this black belt with mortgage coach framework?
Yeah, I think it's great. I told you this before, Dave. I love the star analogy, and I love the idea of kind of putting belt levels in place here. And I definitely agree with you that it takes a while, to become top notch black belt. It takes a lot of hours of work in karate, and it takes a lot of hours work with mortgage coach to get there for sure.
So combination of repetitions, combination of capabilities. So I just ask everybody on the call, are you talking about the total cost over time with every client? And are you bringing in prepay strategies and investment strategies when it makes sense? So let's talk about blue belt. So blue belt is 75 or more TCAs. And now you're starting to use tools like video. You're using audio. You know how to use Mortgage Coach Live when it makes sense. You really have all the capabilities of omni-channel, helping the family get your advice wherever and everywhere they're at. And you have completely mastered giving families options. Like, you've gone from fee week worksheet, here's a transaction, to options, blue belt, 75 TCAs. Greg, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so one of the stories I wanted to share, Dave, is, I think that one of the things that happens in our business is people just go and they work as hard as they can, especially right now with rates being low and the phone's ringing, right? We're just working as fast as we can. We're using the same old tools. And I saw a competitor's email that they had sent to a client. And this is actually a competitor that's been in the business a long time. And she sent 6 different worksheets to this client. So there's 6 PDFs in this email that this client, basically the only way for them to analyze this is to probably print them all out, right? And have them laying out on the kitchen table to, cross-reference. And it was just kind of interesting to see that, with Mortgage Coach being such a great option out there, that here's this person that's a veteran in the mortgage business and they're still doing 6 different, fee worksheets. And so what I would say to that is, hey, if you're just getting started, if you've been doing a lot of loans, maybe you're already a top producer, bring this into your business to take you to that next level. And you're not going to be a black belt right away, but I would say even a orange belt, green belt, blue belt, you're still going to be a lot better than your competition. And that situation just happened yesterday. And after I quickly put a TCA together, I did a quick video to go with it. And not only was the client impressed, but gave great feedback to the agent who I had CC'd on that TCA, so they got to see what kind of advice I give their clients.
Awesome. And Greg, just for anyone that hasn't heard me interview you before, just remind everybody what market you're in. How are you going to close out this month from a production standpoint? How are things going for you?
Yeah, so I'm up in the Seattle market, just a little southeast of Seattle. I will close out this month. We'll do about 30 loans for $12 million. We'll close out the year right around $90 million.
So guys, huge producer, super successful. Let's jump back in and wrap out what it means to be a black belt. And then Greg, I just have a few more questions for you before you got to jump to your next meeting.
Sure.
Can you guys confirm you can see my screen? All right.
Yeah.
So that's a blue belt. So what is a brown belt? Let me make sure I get to the brown belt. So brown belt is really simple. One, you've done it more times. You've done this at least 100 times and you're a brown belt. And then to me, to become a brown belt, you really need to be an inspirational leader. You need to be an inspirational leader to your borrowers, to your realtors, and even to other loan officers, doing interviews like this. Greg is absolutely, you passed brown belt, I don't know how many years ago, but for anyone who's like wanting to evolve as a advisor, I'm giving you the path: orange belt, blue belt, green belt, brown belt, and just be able to have that leadership conversation with clients anywhere and everywhere. This is Denise Donahue. I'm going to be interviewing her again soon, but she's able to bring this inspirational leadership anywhere and everywhere. And really the only difference between a brown belt and a black belt, it's one, repetitions. We're defining at Mortgage Coach that a black belt is 300 plus total cost analysis. And then you can do all of these things in every selling situation that you get in. So for all of you who have emailed me, texted me, Dave, what does it take to get to be a black belt? Really break down the different belts. This is the path. And then Greg, this is where I want to start making it more interactive. And then Scott, I'm going to bring you in for the second half of the call is, you can make this black belt value prop. You can make this as a white belt. And there are a lot of white belt loan officers that say something like this, and then they give a fee worksheet, or they give 7 fee worksheets. There's a lot of orange belt loan officers that say something like this and they give an Excel spreadsheet. But you really can't efficiently and effectively be a black belt without delivering a TCA. And then it's all about the questions. So Greg, my first question is about the questions. I had forwarded you that black belt questionnaire. Mm-hmm. These are I just say 5 core questions that we have right now in today's call. Which one is your favorite of these 5?
Oh gosh. It just depends on the situation. I love number 4 there. Have you been given a TCA before? Because I I use that. I know Jeremy uses that all the time with people when they're shopping. Definitely love to look at number 3 as well. I really work on more than just the particular transaction that this client is in. I am talking to all my first-time buyers right now about their goals for real estate investment over time, and talking to them about leveraging, their first home to grow a financial portfolio that's going to put them in a space that they might want to be later in life, and kind of walking through that with them and how that looks and planning for that. That's kind of one of my focuses right now. Also with refinance, I'm really talking to people about reinvesting that savings, whether that's in with their financial advisor, or for some people, it just makes them more comfortable to keep making the same payment. But I'm really urging folks to think about where they want to be in the future rather than where they are right now, and focusing on just this little moment in time.
Well, I mean, I think that's a really good takeaway, and almost kind of a global thing, that really differentiates the loan officer versus a black belt advisor, where you're always future casting. The loan officer is like, hey, here's your monthly payment. Here's your cash to close. This is the transaction. And the mortgage advisor is always future casting, whether that's the loan options, whether that's the real estate plan. You almost have this mentality where closing the transaction is where our relationship starts. And you're talking about that. So give us an example of exactly what does that sound like at the point of sale. First time buyer, what exactly are you saying to start future casting with them and positioning yourself as a planner?
Yeah, so for sure, what I'm looking at is I'm talking to them about their down payment typically, right? So a lot of first-time buyers, we're in the Seattle market. We do have a lot of tech employees, and so you might get a young couple. They both work for a tech company. They come in saying, "I have to put 20% down." Right. And that maybe they learn that through their parents. And that's great that we have first-time buyers that have saved enough to put 20% down. But I'm talking to them about leverage. And I'm talking to them about maybe, hey, you're so worried about the mortgage insurance. Let's look at some buyout of the mortgage insurance strategies, that type of thing. And keeping some of that money back so that they can have additional down payment for their next purchase. Right. And I believe that's the biggest barrier to entry, is that down payment for a lot of people when they go to either buy an investment property or they just want to buy their next home without selling their first home. A lot of people are stuck. They haven't saved any money. And so what they do is they get themselves in a position where they have to sell their first home to fund the down payment on their next home. And so when you start talking to them at the beginning, before they've even purchased a home, then that's in the back of their mind. If they choose to be a real estate investor, I personally think that's the best way to do it, is every time you decide to upgrade, you keep that home that you had before.
Love that. And so for Mortgage Coach community, if you have questions for Greg, he's got to jump in about 10 minutes. I do want to remind you guys, I've interviewed Greg a number of times. My most recent interview was as we were developing this black belt, path and curriculum. Greg was one of my interviews. He was actually the first one. I did a Mortgage Coach strategies interview with Greg, Katie Pastor, and Scott Nicholson. I interviewed him on just how to be a mortgage wizard, how to turn education to competitive advantage. So I've interviewed Greg a lot. I've noticed a lot of new loan officers in our community, asking for like, hey, where can I get the education and content to really build my confidence and my success? And while I'm a big fan of a lot of different coaches in the industry, and I think you should do them all. Like I think, becoming an expert in the mortgage industry doesn't happen overnight. It's a path. And you should go to Sales Mastery. You should go through Zenex's training. You should watch Mortgage Coach videos. You should take this action and put it in implementation. But there's a couple of videos for you. So Greg, you've got to leave in 10 minutes. anything specific you want to make sure you communicate to the community before you do go? And then Scott Nicholson, I'm going to have you ask a question to Greg before he jumps. After he gives us feedback.
I think the biggest thing is be open to listening to your clients. And that's, I think, where a lot of loan officers really, they aren't listening. And that example I gave you about the person who sent 6 TCAs, Dave, these TCAs, or not TCAs, but cost worksheets, sorry.
I was going to correct you on that.
I know, yeah. Well, I'm so used to TCAs. Like, I tell people in my company, like, hey, if you have something that creates a cost worksheet, just delete it off your desktop. So you're not even tempted, right? But this person did these cost worksheets. They were all over the board. Like, I was confused, and I was trying to figure out, okay, what have they been offered? I couldn't even figure it out, okay? And what that tells me is there's a loan officer that's not listening to their client because their client had been telling them, I'm confused. I don't understand what you're showing me, right? And I had a client over the weekend who they called me, again, loan officer at a credit union, not giving them any advice. This gal wanted to buy a home in a neighborhood that was going to be a great neighborhood for their kids and that, but her partner was not on board because of the additional cost and worried about the budget. Well, I was able to make them both happy by showing them how they could put, instead of 10% down, they could put 5% down, and they could pay off some debt that would free up that monthly cash flow. Right. And so these are things that your competition, I promise you, isn't doing, especially right now when they're maybe inundated with refinance calls.
Scott, any questions for Greg on your side?
Yeah, he's awesome. So great job. I think, he brings up a very good point, and I'm going to reference StoryBrand, that book that you actually turned me on to. And one of the key elements in StoryBrand was your competition you may be delivering a better product than your competition, but the one who wins is the efficient communicator in simplifying the process and guiding them through the process. That's who wins, even though you may be delivering inferior products. So think about that for a second. Is delivering 6 fee worksheets, that's the polar opposite. There's that confusion, and there's what Greg's talking about of simplifying the process and delivering. Even if Greg says, maybe Greg had an inferior, he doesn't, but maybe say he did, he would win it because he won the battle of just simplifying the message to the consumer.
Yeah, very good point. So Greg, before you go, I want to ask you another question, because I know
Sure.
you've done this, but there's been a number of posts recently on this topic, and I'm going to ask Scott this question a few times, but where people are saying, hey, how can I market and position myself as a mortgage coach, as a mortgage advisor, on social media, and just how do I market myself? How do you explain it to a realtor? So, this is a really good example by Keith Collins, where he is talking about the seller buy down on Facebook to his real estate community, and that's from a few weeks ago. We actually saw a loan officer yesterday who created a video, and they were just talking about, hey, I provide this total cost analysis, and they put it on Facebook. And so my 2 cents is there's no right way. I mean, when I interviewed Denise Donahue, and for the people that posted asking about this, absolutely watch my most recent interviews with Denise Donahue, and I'm gonna put them down below, because she's doing everything from pulling out her mobile phone, doing an Instagram or a Facebook story, and then actually showing her TCA. So talking, TCA, not highly produced. You're seeing people like these particular videos that they're using Zoom or Snagit, some desktop video. But one thing I want to make sure everybody gets is that a total cost analysis in comments on social media looks awesome. So like, let's say you did a video like this one right here, make sure you put the actual TCA with, something on point in the comments. So Greg, I know you've done a lot of different versions of this. how are you educating and teaching your clients, your community, your followers about the fact that you're a mortgage coach? What are you doing and how are you doing it?
Yeah, I have not actually, that I can remember, shared a TCA on social media. So that's something that I'm gonna put something together on. What I generally do is when I sit down with a realtor, referral partner for the first time, I walk them through a couple of TCAs, or I will text one to them ahead of time. Say, hey, here's what I just provided to this client, because most of the realtors that I'm meeting with are somebody I've met through a transaction. And so I try to share that more one-on-one, or if I'm meeting with a group of realtors, I always talk about it, but I haven't done it on social media. My view of social media is more like we've talked about before, that becoming the digital mayor of your town. I share some testimonials. I share videos of, experiences we've had. My team and I go out to lunch or whatever, and we'll share an experience there. Just more trying to be one with the community and in flow with everybody. That's where I feel like we get the biggest bang for a buck on social media, but I do definitely like sharing that part. That's something I'm going to have to incorporate.
So it sounds kind of like I did this original interview with Jeremy several years ago. We're like, hey, Jeremy, what are the 5 questions you ask every agent? Mm-hmm. We did a remix on this last week, but it sounds like this is pretty much your move. Ask some questions and then integrate Mortgage Coach where it makes sense with your agents. That's how you promote yourself. Is that right?
Right. And by the way, I do use Jeremy's 5 questions all the time. Like almost every day, really? Those 5 questions. Yeah.
Yeah. So guys, I'm going to put a link down below to this remix. Not only does it include his 5 questions, some color and salesmanship around it, and then he includes how he integrates and just a couple of the ways that he integrates Mortgage Coach in that conversation. So I think we'll do more with Scott on how he's using social media to promote TCAs. So those of you who ask questions, stay on the next half hour of this call, and we'll really drill down on that in detail. Greg, anything else you want to share with the community before you get jumping?
I think that's it. Scott's awesome. So I'll have to go back on YouTube and watch his part here a little bit later. But thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no, thanks for joining us. And we're going to talk about all the ways you can promote and market yourself as a mortgage coach. Thank you, brother. We'll see you guys. Talk to you soon.
Have a great day. Bye, Scott.
All right, guys. So we're going to go into chapter 2 of today's call. If you're on this call and you have a question, I'm going to be looking in our Facebook group for any questions that come in. We've got some other loan officers that we might jump in and have them share some stories and strategies. But Scott, let's start with you. What are you doing? How are you positioning yourself as a mortgage coach black belt out there in the marketplace?
So let's stay on topic there with Greg in the topic of how are you sharing that TCA into that Facebook or into your social media. And so I posted into the group here just maybe 10 minutes ago. And this kind of ties up a lot of things right here. And so I don't know if you can see that or not, the post I put there.
I am looking for it right now, by the way.
It's
in the group. Are you looking for me to pull it up?
Yeah, pull it up. I think it's a great. I mean, this is really hits a lot of people between the eyes, and so I want people to look at it real quick.
Well, as soon as I see it, I will have it pulled up. What's the headline? Just so I can.
I commented to our group.
Oh, you know what? I have a feeling it has not been approved yet. So give me a minute here. So go ahead and talk while I get your post approved and get you in here.
So here's a post that caught my attention last night. I was working and a post came over from an agent saying, geez, every 10th lender, hey, let me tell you about my awesome tools and training for agents. Is there a nice way and polite way to retort to this, basically? And then all your agents started piling in and this and that. And I mean, that's the headwind that your lower belts are going to face. And so how do I call on those agents, you know, that I could maybe get that time? And maybe all those agents are working with all black belt, you know, loan officers, or maybe there's a change up there. It's like, that is a really important. So I actually jumped in and responded to it. And the reason why, because I knew how this was kind of go. And so I actually went and I get a little stock, and I pulled him up. I looked at his properties. He's in Jersey, or he's actually in Illinois. And so then I posted a TCA and say my response with, hey, Ed, let me tell you about some of my awesome tools and training, quote, you know, not really sticking it to him. But I pulled up his property, in particular, the 3497 Cricket Avenue, and I showed him in a TCA, and I'll show these, and I'll share these with you right now, is how I used the seller buy down to, or the TCA, to show him. Do you have that up? Because it's easier to look at it versus me talking about it.
Scott, no, I'm not able to find it. Still looking.
Here.
And maybe there's something on your desktop that you could show.
Yeah, I'll pull it up. I have them up right now. I'll go ahead and share my desktop. You see me?
Yep, I see it.
Okay, here's that post. So there's an agent just getting bombarded by a bunch of, you know, lenders saying, hey, come check me out, look at what I can do, and yada, yada, yada. And so it caught my attention. And then all the other agents started to dogpile in there and just kind of, you know, devalue us. And sure, there's good lenders out there, you know, and it goes to your belts right now, you know, black belt versus your bottom of the belt or whatever. So I actually jumped in there and I responded with this. And so I actually pulled up his properties, and he had a bunch of listings. There are a lot of days on market. This particular one, 3497 Cricket Avenue, was like getting close to 100 days on market. He's already price cut it. And so what I educated them on, Ed in particular, saying, hey, here's some tools that'll help you. So I did analysis on a TCA, and I'll share it here, is what you did, that $10,000 price cut, saved him $75 and lowered his DTI by 3%. If you took that same money, and if we have an appraised value at the 345, the same 10 grand, and we did the seller buy down, which I reduced rate, eliminated mortgage insurance, we're going to save that potential buyer in your listing $231 and reduce his DTA by 9%. That's like having a price cut of $314,000. I put the link in there, and so there's his response to it. That's how you become a black belt, knowing how to use your intellectual capital, how you've been trained, and then using technology to jump back in, and kind of the lion's den in this group. This is the lab coat. It's 100,000 agents across the country. And that's how you're bringing value and difference to these people. I think it's really important to understand that. And I'll share those links with you guys in that post.
Yeah, and then just give us like a really simple headline. Like,
yeah,
let's talk about some ideas. Go ahead.
Yeah, let's go into, this is kind of now the, you know, my presentation. So let's do this. And Greg said it, and Greg's saying it, one of the most difficult things he's dealing with in today's market is the lack of that capital, that working capital to get into that move up buyer. So here's how I'm going to help you guys this morning. How to move up on a smaller down payment, but still maintain the current pre-qual in the process. So, and here's the seller buy down, which I'll post in the group. And can you see it right now?
I'm not. Oh, okay. I see your screen. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So let's just go over this real quick, and I'll show you how this works and how this came about. And this is in a lot of my marketing right now. Row one is the goal of the move up buyer. They want to buy that $750,000 house, but they're sitting on the sideline, and or they've been blocked because of that last number in that cash to close, 161. This is just 101 math that an average loan officer will do, and or the consumer will do with their own loan calculator. 750, 20% down. There's our rate. There's our payment, $37.17. But here's the big one. Here's what Greg was just talking about, the lack of that capital. They need to come up with 161, either save it and or net it out of their bottom leg transaction for the move up. So what do? Row two, This is how you structure it. So how I structured in this example is we wrote a fair and full price at $750. I negotiated a 20,000 seller buy down. And what I did was, here's the numbers, $750. Putting my loan amount will be $650. I used 20,000 or part of the 20,000 to reduce rate to 3 3/8 on a 30-year fix. I also used it to buy out of a single premium MI. Look at my payment. It's exactly the same. Look at my cash to close. It's 50,000 less in cash to close. There's me addressing the issue of not having enough out of the sale of my house and how I structured that. And I can keep going into the third row. Look how I structured here. All I did was increase my seller buy down. $750, worked on a 30,000 seller buy down, reduced my rate to 3 1/8, bought out of the mortgage insurance. Now I have a payment identical. Look at all the payments are identical. I didn't touch their qualification, but I addressed it with less cash to close. In the third row, I have 75,000 less cash to close. This is a presentation that you need to get consumers who are stuck in the move-up transaction. This is the presentation that you need to get to your agents, listing agents in particular, why they can get the listing and get a smaller net, either row 2 or row 3, 111 or 86, and put these transactions together. And I'll tell you how you can get this, and I'll show you a really simple way. Pick up your phone right now. I'm going to deliver this presentation to you right now. It's fully recorded. Steal it. Everything. My script is on it. Pick up the phone and dial, or not dial. Go ahead and text me, 714-477-7425, and I want you to text me, move up. That's all you got to do. Take that number, text me, move up, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to deliver that to you. Why is that important? Why did I add that last little piece there?
Hey, real quick, what's the text again, just so I can put it in chat here?
714
477
7425.
25 text
move up.
Put in move up with a space in it.
Yeah,
Got
just
it.
move up. Yep, just move up. Yep. And so so I did this for 2 reasons. Number 1, I want to deliver you the report to you. Number 2, I now have another continuing process in that black belt, we'll call it, or whatever belt I am, is how do I get this message to the masses? Not only will I can get this on social media, how do I get it to consumers that are driving around with my agents and so on and so forth? And there's where that yard sign, and I'll get into that later, there's where those yard signs start to kick in. Let's say if we want to market this on that 750 house, hey, we can teach you how to move into this property with less cash, text move up. And then what happens is that now I'm delivering my mortgage coach video and strategies to that. So all you guys, I'm watching you text right now, which is great. I now have delivering all of that out there. So this is a critical, you need to copy this. You need to absolutely copy this. But let me pause for a second. One of the most questions I've always gotten from mortgage coach communities is with, hey Scott, I appreciate all the content and the videos and all that good stuff. How do I get it to market? My MLS won't allow me to put comments in there. How do I deliver that to the consumers? How do I get this content to consumers? And that's why I'm having you text it, because as you're texting in right now, guess what I'm getting? I'm getting all of your information right now. I'm lead genning to direct consumers to pass my education off to them. I'm teaching them how to move up with less money. That's how I'm delivering that message. And we can get into that later. Well, let's go to the next topic. Questions on that, Dave? Sorry.
No, it's good. If you guys have questions on this, let us know. If you need the number again, let us know that too. I just got a auto response with a message, a link to a TCA. So, and I do know one thing, like some of the people on this call, they are black belts and they're looking for another move. And I think everything you just said, like they get it, they got it. I think if someone is a white belt, an orange belt, or even a blue belt, some of what you said was a little over their head, and they may have to listen to this again. So I know I want to get into like, what is the simplest strategy that you have that like every loan officer, you know, even if they're an orange belt, they could grasp it and they could implement it.
Yeah, you can. I think if you were just to look at this TCA and how I put this together, I give you everything. I just literally, if you were just to understand this, and this is, I mean, I don't know all your belts offhand. I think orange is under blue or between green, right? Or something like that.
Yeah, whatever. I mean, the idea is they're not a brown belt, they're not a black belt. You know, they've never done a seller buy down. Like I know you've got a good MI option.
Yeah,
you know, everybody loves that MI option.
Yeah, let's do that. So let's break into the MI. And so can you see my screen?
I can.
Okay, so here is a different spin, and I'm going to address the consumer. And think of the consumer in today's market, and Greg said it, is there's the lack of working capital in today's market, meaning I'm not saying I don't have any money, I need some help with closing costs. I'm not talking about that buyer. I'm talking about the buyer that's sitting on the fence because they're trying to save enough to eliminate the mortgage insurance. And Greg said it too, is there's that old school mentality. No, mom and dad or grandma and grandpa told me that I need to save that 20%. And so let's give them options. Let's address that consumer, one, to get them off the fence, and or the average loan officer with no belt is putting that transaction together and they're failing miserably. So let's look at this. So here's the presentation here. I have it opened. And so first row, this is the goal here. This is the consumer's goal. I want to buy this house, Scott, for $750. My payment's basically going to translate into, with 20% down, it's going to translate to $3,851. Here's the problem. $160,000 cash to close. That's a little bit of my move up, but I'm going to reframe this. This is what they're sitting on the fence. They're trying to save this money. So here's your typical non-belt, lower belt mentality solution, row 2. Great. So you only have $90,000, $95,000 to work with. Okay, here's what we got. So you want to buy that house? $750. Here's your down payment. Here's your interest rate. Here's your monthly payment, $43.67. Here's your cash to close based on the assets you have. And I put a little cheat sheet on the header. That's a back end of 52%. So think about row 1, they have a front end of 40. Because of the lack of asset, and now we have PMI involved, now we have a back end of 52, decline. So what's your solution? Third row. I structured this transaction $750, $10K seller buy down. Watch what happens here. And I'm going to go ahead and do 2 things in the third row. I'm going to buy the rate down a smidge, and I'm going to completely buy out of the mortgage insurance with a single premium buyout. $10,000, negotiate a $10,000 seller buy down in the purchase contract. My loan amount $675. There's that smidge buy down $399. I completely eliminated the mortgage insurance here. Look at my payment. $4,074. Look at my cash to close. They're not putting 20% down in row 1. They're putting what they have, the $90,000, say, to deal with. But look what my back end now. It's only now a back end of 45%. This is a green light. I put this transaction together. The person that has no belt, your standard loan officer, is in a decline situation in row 2 at a back end of 52. How I structured it with the seller buy down and eliminated the mortgage insurance, I have a green light at 45. Let me put it in perspective for everybody. This is again row 4, what your average loan officer will do. They'll drop price $698 because they have only limited assets, and they're going to leave the rate and the mortgage insurance there. Look at my payment. Row 4, it's exactly the same, because they got to get the back end at 45 DTI, but they did it with $52,000 less in a sales price. So row 3, just by using the intellectual capital, using the seller buy down 2, 1, reduce rate a smidge, and completely buying out of mortgage insurance, that's how you present, and that's how you keep the no MI and affordability moving in today's market.
So what would be a headline that I'd use in the market
Yeah. So a great headline would be, let's say you're helping your listing agent, for an example, and say, hey, can you help me more? How would I market this property? I love your program, Scott. I saw your video, but how would I market this in today's market? So you could put a headline is, you can buy this house with less than 20% down with no PMI. And guess what you're going to do? That same phone number, go ahead.
Time out. I just want to make sure everyone got that headline. Think about it. Like, people that have to have PMI, they don't want PMI. So to be able to say, hey, you can buy this home with less than 20% down with no PMI, or better yet, with the seller paying for your MI. So guys, get creative around that headline. So there's the art and science of marketing. You've got a black belt mortgage strategy. And now you need to come up with a black belt headline. You need to promote it on social media. And then, Scott, what are some of the ways you're using technology to promote it?
Yeah, and so again, it goes back to what I said about the move-up buyer. Hey, that's great, Scott. How do I get it to the masses? And our goal as loan officers, right? And if you can think this way and present this way and communicate, your sole goal is, how many people can I get in front of? How many agents can I present to? And that's where your success is in that niche, and providing that and just making it tweak to fit that deficiency in the marketplace. And so now you take the headline is, so imagine going to your agents going, I love it. How do I market this to my property and my buyers? And you say, how to buy this property with less than 20% and avoid PMI. Go ahead, and we put the yard sign up, and we say, now everyone on that same number, and I'll deliver this presentation to you, my no PMI, text no PMI to that same number. And then, so think of you loan officers that are listening to Dave and I right now. Imagine you're the consumers watching or driving by that property, or the agent sit down our marketing piece. Now, everyone who texts, which is now a consumer, is gonna get my videos, gonna get my TCA on how we structure this no PMI in the buyout. That's the critical piece right there. There's that delivery mechanism into the market.
So Scott, I know you have you've built this into your website. So let's talk about what you're doing with the seller buy down local websites. Show us what you're doing on a website, how you're doing it.
Yep. And so let me, I'm gonna go backwards and show you a visual. Can you see my screen still?
Uh-huh.
Yep. Okay. Let me go. Where is he? Oh, here it is right here. So I went even further. Call me a nutcase, but I went even further. You see that right there?
Yep.
Guess what property that is? That's the guy last night that was kind of saying, these agents are bugging me and all that stuff. So think of what I did with him and how this is going. And I'll talk about your question here, Dave, is this guy saying, oh my God, every other lender's calling me all this stuff, great. How do you deal with it? It's kind of bashing us a little bit. And then I responded with, hey, I mean, shoot, I looked you up on Zillow and I see all your properties. I see all the price reductions you got going. So I went ahead, I'm going to jump in. I'm going to deliver a strategy. I can help him right now eliminate that PMI. And that's how it works, which he loved the idea. And I go, that's great that you love it. But guess what? Now I actually now built the solution for this guy. So those of you who are watching, if this is a yard sign, this is actually the Cricket listing right here. Now, if you're going to take that number that we've been giving you and text Cricket, you're going to text Cricket. Guess what I'm going to deliver to your phone? And you're the consumers, guys. And you're driving by, you see this cool house, we can help you with affordability. You text Cricket, I'm delivering my seller buy down presentation. I'm going to show you how to implement that. So I'm delivering that to the consumer. And so now let's bring it back to Dave's question so a lot of you guys know I'm the seller buy down guy, and that's been doing it for years and all that good stuff. And I launched this company, my company here, the Seller Buy Down Platform Company, to address one big issue. Is I love what Scott's doing. I can copy what Scott's doing through Mortgage Coach and all the presentations and YouTube channels and all that stuff. But again, one of the big questions, how do I get that to my agents and help them market this strategy? And how do I get to the direct consumer? And I'm going to give that to you here. And this is the main reason why I built this platform. So a couple things is, here's the sellerbuydown.com. Super simple. And think about this. Let me pause for a second. I'm working the seller buy down in not only for a move-up buyer, but I'm eliminating mortgage insurance, not your standard what you think I am, that one-trick pony of just dealing seller buy down stuff. I'm dealing with real-world issues with two particular things: affordability and lack of capital. And so seller buy down was built on the premise to, I'm going to help you take my 12 years experience. I'm going to get it on a web page like I have for myself. I'm going to deliver all of that content, because every time you've texted me so far this morning, my personal seller buy down website has been there every single time, because every agent, loan officer wants it. How do I get more information? How does that program work to me? And so all of that stuff is there. And not only that, the platform handles the call and text campaigns that I'm showing to you guys that push to market. So we can easily build the scenario, build the TCA, build the marketing for the agent. I build the campaigns, and then now the platform has the ability to create that number, has the ability to have the responses and be creative here. I can do the no PMI, I can do the move up buyer, and we're delivering all of that content to market. And so all I'm doing is really simple, is I just want to get lenders. Go ahead.
Scott, go back to that real quick and scroll down, because I also want I want you to see how Scott integrated, promoting himself as a mortgage coach. And we click on one of those, purchase more home with less down. By the way, great headline. It's got a video. He's showcasing a total cost analysis. You might want to have a link to a TCA. I just wanted people to see that. And sellerbuydown.com is a great place to see an awesome example of a mortgage advisor, black belt, specialty in seller buy down. And then I love what you've done is you've taken the fact that you're this seller buy down expert, and now you've built this brand in a local market, the city that you're in. Mm-hmm. And then why don't you go ahead and show us, the platform. We do got to wrap it up in about 4 minutes, but show us, what your platform looks like for anyone who's interested.
Yeah, and so this is the main site, right? So you can go get information on the main site, and so all of it's sitting there. And again, why did I build it? Because there's consumers, and our market needs it. There's consumers are struggling from a multitude of ways. So I want to take my
go back to that map real quick.
Oh yeah.
Is that a map of? I thought you had it pulled up. Is that a map of all the people that you have in your network so far? So guys, think of it this way. Scott is looking for someone who wants to own and be the seller buy down expert in a specific city. I think you're talking to people in most cities already. And, and so if someone wants to learn more about this and they want to own a city, be the seller buy down expert in a city, how do they get in touch with you, bro?
Yeah, so super easy. You can obviously private message me or call me or whatever, but if you wanted something, just shoot me a message, shoot me an email, you can text, or you can just go to the site and just go, I'm in, and think of it super simple. You just go join, click on join on the main page, and off you go. I'm going to make it super easy for you too. It's $300 a month is for the membership. It's month to month. There's no long-term. Cancel if you don't like it. And off you go. And what's really cool, and I think this is a really important thing, I don't mean to get sidetracked, Dave, is I have my own private seller buy down group for our members. And this is where we dive deep. This is where we get into, explain, what do I do? Oh, here's a perfect example. So this Thursday, I run coaching calls in the group every Thursday. So one of the loan officers in the group, I'll keep his name out, he landed 110 unit new build construction in his city based on the seller buy down. He went up with another lender. It was down to them too. He presented the seller buy down. And now what we're going to do is we're going to take him as a group. We're going to huddle and we're going to lay out all the marketing for the new construction that's going to happen here in the next month. And so super excited. Is again, leveraging the seller buy down, the community, his site, everything, all the content. And so think of all the text response campaigns that I'm showing you right now. That's on the platform. So one of the big deal of things we're going to show him or educate him as a group, he's going to have all this in the new construction. So he's going to be able to deliver a lot of content to buyers in those new developments. So so do a lot of coaching, mentoring in this group, which is fun, and how we work and all that. There's some of our yard signs in our Christmas group, and even taking this, right, and going into another agent group, and again, delivering all the content in through here, and how we're working our TCAs and our seller buy down and all of that stuff. So that's it. That's the platform.
Got it. Well, I want to call this out. If you can stop sharing your screen real quick.
Yep.
We're going to go into wrap-up mode. I'm going to share my screen real quick and just remind everybody what it is to be a black belt. It's to be able to deliver this, star of advice, to be able to use all the technology around it, to be able to do all the different selling situations. Scott is an expert at the seller buy down analysis, and he's building a brand, like a personal brand, so that every realtor in his local market, they know him as a mortgage professional, they know him as a mortgage advisor, and they also know that, hey, this guy's the seller buy down king. If I need creative financing to sell a house faster, call Scott. If I've got a buyer that's on the fence and we need to think of creative ways to get that buyer to the property, call Scott. So there's riches in niches. Highly recommend that everybody formulates your own niche. Josh Metal is the king of doctor loans. Louise Thaxton, is the queen of helping VA families. Have at least one niche, if not multiple niches, but make sure you're mastering how you deliver advice at the point of sale. So Scott, if you could do me a favor, in the link down below in our Facebook group, put a link to how people can get a hold of you, email, contact, and if people do want to sign up, how they can do it. Mortgage coach community, hopefully you got value from today's Tuesday call. Todd Bookspan is going to be running our Friday mastermind this week. I want to remind everybody we now have an IGTV channel, Instagram TV, and we're pushing videos up there weekly. The Jeremy Forcier 5 questions to ask every realtor is going to be pushed any day now. Plus, I've got a few interviews from Sales Mastery that should be hitting by the end of the week. So check it out. If you got value from today's call, give it a like down below. Share it with your mortgage friends. Scott Nicholson, thank you, brother.
Yep. Thanks, guys. Take care. I'll put those links.
This call is a wrap.